when you're looking at the Warriors, are they going to need more from Steph, whether or not that is fair, in order to keep this dynasty and their play-in hopes afloat?
22nd three on the season for Trey Jones. Jaylen Green step.
How much are you now kind of tracking the Rockets?
I don't give a damn about the Rockets.
Why not?
Collins, back to Green, right back to Sengun.
The situation will define itself pretty clearly, and it is in kind of real time, so every game matters.
So it seems like there's trouble out in the Bay as the Golden State Warriors are this close from falling out of the play-in, something that I don't think anybody, and I do mean anyone, expected beginning the season. When we look at the standings, the Golden State Warriors are only one game away from being knocked out of the play-in, and as I record this video, the Houston Rockets are actually matching up against the Portland Trail Blazers as I speak right now, and they're winning, I believe it was 77-68. More than likely, the Houston Rockets will win that game and go on to further close the margin between the Golden State Warriors and themselves, which then begs the question, will the Golden State Warriors even make the play-in? Now, before I get into bashing the Golden State Warriors, because there's a lot to be concerned with out in the Bay, man. I'm be honest with you, out with the Golden State, you know what I'm saying? Out with the Warriors, you know what I'm saying? But before I get into that, I gotta give credit where credit is due. Many people are gonna talk about the Warriors struggling. Many people are gonna talk about what that team's future is gonna look like moving forward. Many people are gonna be hyper-focused with the Golden State Warriors. Before I get into that, I do want to give a shout out to the Houston Rockets. Young team out there improving, impressing. This is a season where there were some questionable decisions made in the preseason or in the offseason, bringing in Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet for the amount of money that they paid them. It seems like that's panning out. Both veteran players providing a level of complexity to what this locker room desperately needed, as well as Sengun emerging as a really, really quality big. And in particular, as of late, the reason why the Houston Rockets are even in this situation is because they're on a 8-game winning streak, and they've been able to do this even when Sengun is on the sideline. And this is where you got to give credit to Jaylen Green. Yo, Jaylen Green receives a lot of flack because he hasn't been able to live up to the potential. He shows a lot of flashes. A lot of people have been saying, hey, is that? Yeah, I know the MJ comps are kind of nasty, but it really hasn't been consistent. It hasn't been panning out, and a lot of questions on the makeup of the roster. Can he actually step up to that plate and be the superstar caliber player they need him to be? Or is it just flashes and you have to move in a different direction? As of late, especially in this winning streak, it's been very, very much so impressive. As a young guard, just won player of the week, putting up ridiculous numbers across the board, but over a slightly larger sample size over the last 11 games, he's averaging 28 points, 5 to 6 rebounds, 3.5 assists, a steal, shooting splits of 51, 42, and 80% from the charity stripe. Very impressive for a player, again, who's shown a level of inconsistency that has a lot of people concerned, but he's stepped up to the plate. I think the game that stood out to me that put me on the radar what Jaylen Green is doing as of late is that win they had against the Washington Wizards, where he was putting up, I think he put like 35 or 37 points. He was sensational, miraculous, and a lot of the tough shot making, the finishing, a lot of those Jordan-esque type of plays that many people, especially Houston fans, have been really, really high on. They're starting to translate a little bit more consistently. There is some concerns on if Jaylen Green will be able to perform this way when Sengun is also available, because Sengun has been out over the past handful of games, and that's when, again, some of these scoring explosions have gone up to ridiculous heights. So yes, those concerns are there, but before you over concern yourself with that, I do believe it's very important to highlight when a young team is exceeding expectations, starting to translate some of those numbers into wins, especially in the Western Conference that's as talented as this West has been this season. There's probably going to be 7, maybe 8 teams out West that's going to finish with around 48 to 50 wins this year. And so the fact that the Houston Rockets are going to be in a mix of that is going to be very, very impressive. Huge shout out to not only Sengun and Green, but also Coach Ame, in time in Boston, really provided the evidence that he was a really good coach, now translating that out in H-Town. So that's really, really good. And some of the supporting cast members as well, Tari and Eason, pay very close attention to what Eason does, especially defensively. He's really, really great. Shout out to Cam Whitmore. As a Laker fan, it does bother me that we overlooked him. We should have brought him on the roster, but he's also translating really well also. And Jabari Smith, still give me very Trevor Ariza vibes, but be a bit more versatile in those aspects as well. Young up and coming team. I love him. But we're not here for all that, man. Y'all know what we here for? The Warriors. Man, we have been talking about the Warriors ad nauseum on this channel because it has been a sight to see how Golden State has been able to crumble apart this dynasty the way that they have, and it was all avoidable. I mean, we can date it back to the draft capital that they had, that they decided not to trade, and those players turned out to be Jordan Poole and James Wiseman. Fair enough, Kuminga also came out of that bunch as well, but looking at some of the younger players that they could have drafted over some of those players, it's safe to say they swung and missed. Then you look at the whole situation with their cap flexibility. Some cap comes off the books this year, in large part Klay Thompson, but you gotta wonder what exactly they're gonna do with Klay. A lot of concerns about Andrew Wiggins just falling off the face of the universe after he received his contract. I don't want to be too harsh on Wiggins though, because it may be some off the court issues with his family, so not too much on Wiggs, but that is something that's still concerning. Obviously, Draymond and Curry are regressing just because they're getting older, which, as a sidebar, that does not get talked about enough, because Curry recently, yikes, dog. Curry over the last 15 games, which basically is since the All-Star break, 22 points, 4.5 rebounds, roughly 5 assists, half a steal, shooting splits of 39, 34, and 90. Fair, but only getting to the charity stripe 3 times. Two things that really sticks out, obviously the 3-point shooting, which is crazy, but somehow, some way, a team that needs their best player to play as many minutes as possible is only playing 30 minutes, which is another problem. Steve Kerr, oh my goodness, what are you doing? Bro, I'm a Laker fan. I ain't got no dog in this race. I don't really care one way or another. But what Steve Kerr has done this year has been the definition of malpractice. We're talking about someone who's coaching a ball club that is lacking talent desperately. In the beginning part of the season, there were ongoing conversations about Wiggins and Klay and the fall off from some of the players getting older. They need a little bit more dynamic in their offense and on defense. And they had it with Kuminga. B-Pods has actually been really good. TJD, shout out to the young end coming off the bench. But Steve Kerr wasn't playing none of them. Matter of fact, he literally was giving excuses to why he wasn't going to play none of them in the beginning part of the season and just kept riding on to Klay Thompson, even though Klay was dropping that motherfucker down to the ground. Oh my God. Klay Thompson, before we get, that's a whole nother story right there. But the fact that Steve Kerr kept giving lineups of Klay Thompson and Andrew Wiggins, even though they both were providing more than enough evidence that it really wasn't working out, especially in the beginning part of the season when Draymond was dealing with suspension, he got niggas in a chokehold, right? So now Draymond's out. You just sitting here, just keep riding Wiggins and Klay, even though it's not panning out. When you got Kuminga on the bench, they ask you why you ain't playing him. He's like, when I was coming up, I ain't get that many minutes either. It's just a part of it. My nigga, Steve Kerr, Kuminga's not you. He's better than you. He's a better player than who you are. So if you were telling me the reason why you're not going to give him minutes is because back in the day, you also had to deal with these type of crazy minutes up and down when you're young, that's a terrible excuse. If anything, the fact that you experienced that should be more reason to why you wouldn't want somebody on your team to experience it. Come on, think for yourself. Think for a second. Think! The fact that this team will run lineups of 3 or 4 guards, and I've seen it myself. We'll watch these games on playback.tv, and we'll sit here and see 3-4 guard lineups. It's just ridiculous. You got TJD on the bench. Great young big. Give you a lot of athleticism, energy coming off the bench. Still don't play him. Why is that? You got Jonathan Kuminga, B-Pods out there, Moses Moody. You got nice, young, solid perimeter players. Still don't play him. I'm seeing lineups of Chris Paul and Dario Saric. What? Why is it that you run lineups of Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Saric, and sometimes if it's not Saric, then it's Draymond? How does that work? That don't make no sense. Or how about early in the year where you just like, oh, I'm gonna trust in Kevin Looney. It don't matter what's going on. I'm gonna keep playing Looney. What? You got athleticism coming off the bench and you still playing Looney? That didn't make no sense either. But the biggest elephant in the room, and it will continue to be the biggest elephant in the room, is what exactly y'all doing with Klay? Because I don't know. I mean, Klay Thompson, 33, going on 34. Contract extension. He's getting paid 40-something now. I heard that he's probably going to take less. Thank goodness, right? Because nobody else is going to pay him that much money. But fair enough. But what exactly are y'all doing with him again? Because at the deadline, you didn't trade him. So you're going to bring him back to the team, but even if you give him less money, it's still going to be too much. Mind you, this is a team that has spent over 200 M's on a roster that's about to miss the play-in. How is that possible? How do you do that? How do you spend, let's get this number on the dot now. Let me get it. 206. How is it possible that you spend $206 million on a roster that isn't going to make the play-in? And then even with Clay coming off of the books, Dario Saric coming off of the books, next year you still have $174 million committed. So even if you only gave Klay Thompson $20 million, you would still be around $200 million next year. How is that possible? You still got to pay Kuminga his extension, Moody his extension. You got to give Gary Payton his extension as well. I mean, he does have a player option. He might get more money, but you got to pay him also. Very, very interesting. So what exactly are y'all going to do? Because we just went through not only one, but two cycles of opportunities for the Golden State Warriors to see increase and improvement in their roster. They decided this whole pack. The only major decision that they decided to do was move off of Jordan Poole for who else but Christopher Paul? Oh my goodness. I could get by Chris Paul right now. I mean, that's how slow he looks like on the floor. It's pretty nasty. Now, this is not really a knock on any of these players. I feel like the lack of talent around them is what is forcing this organization to ask more of them. So though I still love Curry, I think he's an amazing player, amazing talent, but he's being asked to do way too much at age 36, looking at 37. He should not have to be asked to do all these things. Draymond Green, he is 34, about to be 35, still has to be the best defensive player for a team that overly depends on him on that side of the floor. And then on the flip side, you have young players in Jonathan Kuminga, B-Pods, TJD, who are asked to do a lot as well because this team needs the talent to put around those two while also needing the consistency as well that you will receive from veterans, not players who are in their first, second, or third year, right? So there's a lot to being asked from the older players and the younger players, and there's nobody in between to kind of fill in that gap so the transition can be smooth as possible, which was supposed to be the whole purpose of why you decided to go out of your way to draft these players instead of trading them to go get some picks, right? Speaking of which, just in case people who don't know, this team is about to go into the play-in, and just for the people who are wondering, do the Warriors have their pick? Come on now, you know they ain't got a pick. Come on now, you know they ain't got it. The Warriors' first round pick is actually going to the Portland Trailblazers, so even this year, being out of the play-in doesn't really matter at all because they don't even have a draft pick. So even if the Warriors do make the play-in, bro, they're going to get knocked out in the first matchup. And even if they don't get knocked out in the first matchup, like looking at the teams that are also in the play-in, it is impossible for them to make it to the playoffs. Nearly impossible. Let me not say it's impossible. It's a one-game win-all type of situation, so I don't want to say that. But the Lakers are probably going to move up because the Lakers actually have a very weak schedule right here. If they don't get knocked out in the play-in, they would have to face at best either Phoenix, Sacramento, Dallas, and maybe the Lakers. And then after that, they also have to beat one of these other teams again because they're all the way in the 10th seed. They have to win 2 games while also still winning enough games to still stay in the play-in. Here's the problem though. Let's look at their schedule. The teams they have to face is not easy at all. They have to face the Dallas Mavericks twice, the Houston Rockets, which is going to be that's going to be must-see TV. I'm streaming that game without a doubt on playback.tv. Check me out April 4th. We definitely watching that. They have to play the Los Angeles Lakers as well, obviously streaming that as well. And then they still have to match up against Miami, Orlando, and San Antonio. I mean, this is a team that has lost games that they should have won early on. So I don't think any of these games are easy W's whatsoever, but undeniably going up against Dallas twice, Houston and LA, all of those games are going to be must-see, must-win for an organization that has really pissed away a lot of wins throughout this year. The amount of blown leads that this team has seen this season has been just ridiculous. And then again, looking at the Lakers schedule, because just in case people don't know, the Lakers upcoming schedule, they have the Bucks tomorrow, which will probably be today. We'll be streaming that also on playback.tv. But then after that, Memphis, Indiana, Brooklyn, Toronto, Washington. Pretty light schedule until we get to Cleveland, Minnesota, and Golden State. But then we'll finish the year off with, again, Memphis and New Orleans. This is the reason why I do believe that the Lakers schedule is weak enough to where they probably won't be with the 9th seed. They'll probably be a little bit higher. I do think Golden State, if I had to put money on it, I think Golden State is going to make the play-in, but they're in such a dire situation right now. Losing a couple of more games that you're not supposed to is going to make it extremely more difficult, and it's going to be hard to kind of bounce back from that. And even if they do make the play-in though, probably going to match up with either the Kings, Lakers, or Suns in that first round matchup, and then they have to win another game as well. So that's going to be very, very difficult to do. And then as we kind of look at the Rockets schedule as well, the Rockets, they're alive against the Portland Trailblazers right now, but again, I think they're winning by 10 points. They're up by 8 points, 24 seconds left, so that game is done. So after that is OKC. That's going to be a tough game, but then they have the Utah Jazz, might be a little easier, the Dallas Mavericks, Minnesota, then Golden State. That's going to be a tough run for them, as well as Miami and Dallas again, but they kind of close it out on a bit of a soft part of their schedule. And even though, yes, that's the Clippers more than likely, they're not going to play their starters in that game. So it's going to be a very interesting race to the play-in spot for the Warriors and Rockets, which is just crazy to me. And I do believe that the Warriors are still going to make the play-in, but the simple fact that we're having this conversation right now is what's very telling for an organization that doesn't really have any more moves to be made moving forward. It feels like Steve Kerr is already waving the white flag by not giving Steph Curry more than 30 minutes a game over the past 15 while he's been struggling as well. It feels as if like this team is trying to find talent a little bit too late in the season with their young players. And just all in all, the roster just isn't constructed in a way into which it makes a lot of sense, which then swings us into this upcoming offseason where they're probably going to pay Klay Thompson, even though it doesn't really make any sense for him to receive the money that he's probably going to receive, which is going to further handicap them. And it's also going to talk about a team that doesn't have a draft pick heading into this, or at least a first round pick heading into this upcoming draft class either, which is also going to be very telling for a team that again is trying to add talent to this roster, not limit themselves in being able to do so. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the subscribe button, notification bell for more daily NBA content like this. And until next time, I'll see you all later. Peace.